another Lunch and Learn, another opportunity for us to learn a few things that we might not otherwise have known so that we can make informed decisions. So let's jump right in. First, you need to know that you're kind of made up of water. In fact, water makes up a large portion of who we are, and as you can see, controls a lot of different things in the body, from everything from saliva to allowing the body cells to grow and reproduce and survive, to flushing the body of waste, lubricating our joints. It also is a major portion of a lot of our body parts. In fact, if you look at this, what you'll see is, in essence, we're about 60% water. That's just what we're made up of. Our blood is roughly 92% water. Our brain's 73%. Our heart's 73%. All kinds of different issues. But in fact, what's interesting is even our bones are made up of 31% water. So we are water. So when we are dehydrated, you have to understand it's not just affecting a little bit of us, it's affecting a lot of the function of what we're dealing with. Now, here's an interesting fact. And we're going to have several interesting facts as this Lunch and Learn goes on, because these are the kind of things that we need to be cognizant of. Did you know that roughly 1/3 of Americans' primary source of hydration comes from sugary beverages? Notice this is all about water consumption. This is, we're going to have a little bit about electrolyte replenishment. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But the main thing is a lot of people will go through their day drinking nothing but sodas, fruit juices, sports drinks, just loaded with sugar, thinking, hey, I'm hydrating. I'm replenishing my body with what it needs. But unfortunately, we end up consuming a lot of the sugar and calories that are unnecessary to actually giving the body what it's looking for. In fact, if you looked at a typical day of the average American, you would start out your morning with your orange juice and coffee. That coffee is no longer the black stuff that your grandparents drank with maybe a little bit of sugar added to it. No, now it's, a 17-verse lyric that you say at the Starbucks line and pay $8 for, and you and the barista know what it is, but other than that, no one knows what in the world you just said. But that's our now coffee. Then, of course, our one soda, because, when people drink soda, they only have one a day. The average American is up to 5 or 6 if you're a regular soda drinker, by the way. Then we have our fruit drink. That's just something we have during the day. We have our one sweet tea in the evening. And then, of course, we have that cold beer on the way home. Most people, when they're trying to do health journeys or they're looking at, their hydration, they don't even take into consideration the calories that are being consumed. This in a typical day, just so you can see at the bottom, 1,370 calories. 1,370 calories, and we should be working on, roughly about a 2,000 calorie, a day consumption window. Not that I encourage you to count calories, but if you think, what you've basically done is left yourself, less than 700 calories to eat on for the day. Unfortunately, this is why most people end up with a calorie total of over 2,600 per day. Now, what are signs of poor hydration? First, and the most obvious, is being thirstier. That's pretty simple. What about the dry, sticky mouth? Don't forget about that. The feeling tired. That's right. You can actually feel tired because you are dehydrated. So you need to understand that. What about a headache? You can actually start getting headaches, even feeling dizzy or lightheaded as a result of dehydration. And then, of course, if you've never seen before, as your urine gets darker, what you will notice is that is a telltale sign that you are poorly hydrated. You need to make sure that if you start having dark urine, that you are hydrating your body properly. So again, these are some of the telltale signs. We're going to go through some more. So let's go through the stages of dehydration, because if you understand the stages, then you can understand things that you should be paying attention to and things that you can do about it. First, this is probably one of the ones that I talk about most often, and it's the dry lips. In fact, I have now probably spoken on stages several hundred times over the last few years, and every time I do this from stage and I ask somebody, okay, so I have dry lips, what does that mean I need? Inevitably, I hear lip gloss, lip balm, lipstick, that's the Band-Aid. What I need is water. What I actually need is hydration. Mild dehydration, one of the very first signs is dry lips and dry mouth. pay attention to what your body's trying to tell you. And if that's happening to you, drink your water, people. Of course, you also have the low urine output, and concentrated urine appears dark yellow. So, that's mild dehydration. Moderate dehydration, things start to get a little bit more severe. Thirst is obviously part of that. Very dry mouth, almost where you can't produce saliva. Sunken eyes, low or no urine output at all, and you're not producing tears. So that's moderate. And then, of course, severe, now we're talking about hospitalization. You're going to have an affected pulse, your cold hands and feet, so your body's basically trying to tell you, I'm going to move all of the hydration that I have into the internal organs to keep them operating. You're going to increase your breathing. You're going to have blue lips. You're lethargic, comatose, seizures are possible, and severe hydration requires immediate hospitalization. So don't ever let it get to that phase. Here's an interesting fact. How long can you live without the following? Well, for food, you're probably looking at about 30 days, give or take. Water, 7 days. That's it. So with food, you can live 30 days without it, roughly, and water, the outside is 7 before you will no longer survive. Sleep, 4 to 5 days, and that may actually be long for some people. And then, of course, the internet's about 15 minutes. We recently had our main line cut in my neighborhood. We have this wonderful thing called Nextdoor, if you've ever heard of this app. You would literally thought the world was coming to an end because everyone's internet was down or the Wi-Fi was down in our neighborhood for 3 days. It was quite comical, and I figured I had to throw that in there. But the main thing to get from this is 7 days is you're outside on consumption of water without affecting your life expectancy. So what is the compound effect of dehydration? This is something that happens over a period of time. It is like a snowball. It is that little snowball at the top of the mountain that turns into an avalanche. So let's understand what it means. First, you're going to lose cognitive function at about 1.5% dehydration. You're going to increase fatigue, or you're going to feel more tired, and you're going to start getting headaches. Now, what's interesting about this is this happens all the time to people where they start losing their focus, they start lacking energy, and they get the headache. And the first thing people are accustomed to thinking is, oh man, here comes a sinus attack. I need to grab my Advil, Aleve, ibuprofen, aspirin, you name it, or my allergy medicine. People always want to go straight to the drugs. The reality is a lot of times you are simply dehydrated. In fact, IDLife did a relationship, or has a partnership, a national partnership with Garmin. And part of the reason why we did that is because they have a scale that interacts with their wearable devices. And some of the things that it does, just one of the many things that scale does, is it will actually give you your hydration percentage. I cannot tell you how invaluable that is. When you're going through any type of change, or you're going through a workout program, or you're trying to change your diet and lifestyle, I can't tell you how many times I've woke up in the morning, had kind of that headache where I felt like, oh man, here comes the sinuses today. It's just one of those days outside. Get on the scale and find out that I'm actually not at my optimal hydration percentage that I typically am. And when I drink the water, get my body rehydrated, how the headache kind of disappears. So remember these 3 things. A lot of times you don't need the drug or the over-the-counter medication. What you need is to grab some water and consume it. Now, when dehydration hits 3%, things start getting really crazy, because now you're starting to have fuzzy thinking. You can't really get out of your brain fog. And, of course, your metabolism will start to slow down. Now, this is one of those interesting things, is dehydration can actually lead to weight gain. The reason why? You're slowing down your metabolism. You cannot burn off the calories as fast and as normal as you would. And then, of course, when things get really bad and you're at dehydration of 5%, now you have a 25 to 30% loss of energy. Your blood pressure is going up, and, of course, joint pain and stiffness. So let's talk about this. Heart health. Dehydration results in higher blood pressure. See, if you know anybody that suffers with high blood pressure, you need to tell them about this Lunch and Learn and have them watch this, because if nothing else, they need to understand the easiest and fastest way to help their high blood pressure issue is to drink more water. Blood is 92% water. All right, so think through this for just a second. Do you want your blood to be more like molasses, or more like the water that's coming out of the faucet. Obviously, out of the faucet would be a little bit better. It's going to flow better. And guess what? There's going to be less pressure needed in order to push it through, which means you're going to lower the blood pressure. When you are dehydrated, your blood is thicker. And when it gets thicker, guess what? There's a higher pressure to push it through the heart. Therefore, your blood pressure goes up. So if you've learned nothing else from this Lunch and Learn today, if you know somebody that suffers with high blood pressure, or you yourself have this issue and you notice that your blood pressure is elevated, drink more water than you typically would and see if it doesn't positively impact that high blood pressure issue for you. Constipation. Isn't this one that everybody wants to talk about? You know, this is one of those things that's a taboo subject, but the reality is dehydration is the leading cause of chronic constipation. If this is something that you suffer with, if this is an issue that you have but you don't like to talk about, or you're just not regular and you're trying to take laxatives and over-the-counter aids or even prescription aids, you might want to increase your water consumption to an extra 2-3 equivalent bottles of water a day. Add 36 to 40 ounces of water a day and see if that doesn't help with the issue. And what you're going to find is most of the times it'll do just that. Skincare. In this country, there's an endless supply of skincare products. They're all over the place. In fact, we spend $11 billion a year in the United States on skincare. So it's going to be spent this year. And the reality is the top secret, without a doubt, best skincare product on the planet. Okay, it's something that you can't even really find it in the stores. It's definitely not on any of the shelves like you see in front of you. It is water. Ask any dermatologist, and the first thing they will tell you is proper hydration is the best skincare product in the world. If you are dehydrated, I don't care what you're putting on top of your skin, guess what? If you're not taking care of the inside, you are wasting the money by trying to put something on the outside. Start with the internal and then work on the external. But it all starts with properly hydrating the body. Now, let's talk about our sedentary lifestyle. Most people think, well, I don't need a lot of water because I have a desk job and, I'm not really active that much. So, I don't, this Lunch and Learn may not necessarily be for me. But the reality is we lose anywhere from a half to 1 gallon of fluid daily without exercise. That's right, just by simply existing. In fact, if we actually learned, if you Google this and find out how much you actually sweat while you're asleep, there'd be a lot of people out there that would probably be changing their sheets every single night. It can be quite a lot. But the reality is this, we're losing that if we do nothing, if we don't exercise, and all we do is exist. But if we do exercise, things get a little bit more intense. See, because we're going to lose anywhere from 32 to 64 ounces of water in that exercise per hour. Now, 32 to 64 ounces, we're talking 2 to 4 pounds. So 16 ounces is a pound, 32, that's 2 pounds, 64 is 4 pounds. A lot of times people go to the gym and they're like, oh man, I just lost 2 to 4 pounds. The reality is you didn't lose anything but water weight. Because remember, you're trying to increase lean muscle, you're trying to lose fat, you're not trying to lose weight. So the reality is, in order to properly rehydrate the body after exercise, you need to do certain things. First, you should weigh yourself before you work out. I know it's counterintuitive. The scale is just a unit of measure. It's not a definition of who you are, but I'm going to explain to you in a minute why you want to do that. Because immediately after your workout, you want to weigh yourself again. You want to see how much water weight you have lost, because you need to take that amount, multiply it by 1.5, and that's how much you need to drink. So if you lost a pound, okay, great. You need to drink 24 ounces of water to replenish your body of the hydration that it lost during the workout. Remember, we are not trying to lose water weight here. We are trying to gain muscle, lose fat. We have to rehydrate the body, because by rehydrating the body, it can actually repair itself. If we don't rehydrate the body, it is going to be in disrepair. It's going to be inflamed, and you are not going to recover from what you just did. Again, 1 pound, 16 ounces. Just remember that. Interesting fact, the brain does not differentiate between hunger and thirst. That's right. Sometimes this signal gets lost. We are thirsty, and what we hear is hungry, and we go for the food. Well, if we make that mistake and we choose one of these, then, hey, we're doing pretty well, because these are the 10 most hydrating foods you can consume, everywhere from a cucumber and watermelon that are 96% all the way down to the pear that's 89% water. The body, even though it doesn't differentiate between hunger and thirst, when it sends that signal, if you decide you're going to eat when all the body needs is hydration and water, then it will pull the water out of the food. And, you're consuming these types of things, then, you will get your hydration that you need, and everything will move on throughout the day. Unfortunately, a lot of times, though, when our body sends that, hey, I'm thirsty signal, and we hear, oh, I'm hungry signal, these are the things that we grab. Very little, if any, actual hydration in any of these bags, boxes, jars, or cans. In fact, what happens is the body will allow us to continue to consume these things until it pulls out the hydration that it needs, which is why we have a tendency to overeat these things, because it's not a stomach issue. It is a hydration issue that we have misinterpreted. And this is why we recommend that you drink water before every meal. In fact, on that issue, did you know that by simply drinking 16 ounces of water before each meal, you will reduce how much you eat and help maintain weight goals? It really is that simple. A lot of times I tell people, especially if you're going to go out to eat, and the average American is going out to eat, 2 to 3 times a week now. If you will simply order a glass of water while you're waiting on your food to come, drink that water, and then have whatever else you want to have to drink with dinner, and maybe it is just the water. But drink the water first and watch how much less you actually consume in the food that you typically eat. Because a lot of times we are both hungry and we are also thirsty. And by replenishing the thirst first, we have properly hydrated the body. And now the body only needs the food that it needs to fuel itself. So whatever that means. So good rule of thumb. In fact, if you are on a health and wellness journey where you're trying to lose fat and gain muscle, then if you would add simply 3 bottles of water additionally a day to your diet, so whatever you're currently consuming, the equivalent of adding 3 bottles of water a day, in 1 year, you will have lost 5 pounds. 5 pounds of visceral fat may not mean much. You may think 5 pounds isn't hardly anything, but if you look at the size of the quarter and look at the size of the fat, you'll notice that 5 pounds of that kind of fat on your body, around your organs and tissues, and putting pressure on your body's organ systems and what you're having to carry around every day is a big deal. So just remember that. The one thing you can't forget, though, is hydration alone, or water alone, is not enough. You also need to replenish your electrolytes. In fact, we have unfortunately been trained that in the afternoon when we lack energy, we need caffeine. And the reality is about 40% of the population are slow metabolizers of caffeine, which means if you're having caffeine after 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you very well may not be going to bed till 11 or 12 o'clock at night. You thought you were a night owl, but reality is your caffeine consumption, or your inability to metabolize the caffeine that you're consuming late in the afternoon, is the culprit of why your sleep cycle is being inhibited. And if you want to understand why sleep is the number 1 cause of disease in this country, we have a lunch and learn on that topic as well. But by simply replenishing your electrolytes in the afternoon as opposed to the caffeine, what you will find is you will get a natural energy boost. We've been talking about hydration and how hydration, or specifically dehydration, leads to fatigue and lack of energy. But when we're properly hydrated and we're replenishing our electrolytes, our bodies can do some pretty amazing things. Be very careful, though, because when you're going to replenish your electrolytes, like ID Life has a no sugar electrolyte replenisher. That's 400 milligrams of electrolytes. We call it Hydrate, of all things. No sugar. It's sweetened with stevia. It tastes amazing. But when you're trying to replenish your electrolytes, these are the kind of things you need to be paying attention to. A lot of people think sports drinks are exactly what I need when I'm going through a workout to replenish my electrolytes and replenish my thirst or my hydration that I need. The reality is there's 36 grams of sugar in each of those Gatorade bottles. A Coke has 40, so it's not much better. But if you will take the 36, divide by 4, okay? If you divide it by 4, because 4 grams is the number of teaspoons, that gets you 9 servings of sugar in each Gatorade. Well, the American Heart Association says women should have 6 per day, men 9, children 6. So a lot of times with our kids, we're giving our kids one of these before the game, one during the game, and one after the game. Well, if they're only supposed to have 6 and we just gave them 27, you can do the math. We are literally giving our children 4.5 times the amount of sugar that they're supposed to have an entire day, usually in a 1 to 1.5 hour time period. And then unfortunately trying to get them to sit down and shut up in the car on the way home. We have to be smarter. So replenish your hydration, keep hydrated, but most importantly also replenish your electrolytes, but do so in an effective way and avoid the unnecessary sugars. We really hope that this has been helpful to you. I mean, at ID Life, we talk all the time about how diet and lifestyle choices create the nutritional gaps that we have, and the better choices you make, the less nutritional gap you have. And if you want to learn more about yourself and what that means, you make the free assessment and get your free health score. Most importantly, get your free health report and see some diet and lifestyle choice modifications that you can make that can improve your overall health. And the ethics and integrity at ID Life is that, in that report, we don't recommend an ID Life product. We just tell you things like, hey, did you know there's a direct correlation between the consumption of processed meats and hypertension or high blood pressure, and that by simply reducing and or eliminating your consumption, you can naturally improve your high blood pressure state. All that information is available to you free of charge. And I highly encourage you to go learn more and learn how your diet and lifestyle choices are affecting your health goals.